And these coal miners said, no more. I'm going to fight against this. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to allow our lives to be dictated by the coal mine anymore. We're not going to let the coal mine tell us how to live our life. You would think that the people outside the city will be supportive. You would think that the state will be supportive of human rights. You would think that the federal government that just passed laws that instituted it made it legal to implement labor unions and workers' rights unions, organizations, you would think that the federal government would be okay with supporting these coal miners. But nothing was further from the truth. Everybody outside the coal miners' life wanted to tell the coal miners how to live. It was amazing to me how they outlined in the documentary how the city and all the lawyers and doctors, and they developed a militia, and they call it the vigilante squad, right? It was supported by the police, it was supported by the National Guard. They formed a vigilante squad, right, that was instituted to prevent those who were pro-labor, pro-union from picketing. Because the coal miners began to say, we're going on strike, we're not going to do this. But the city said, no, the resources you provide for us, we need you to keep doing what you're doing. So it's okay for the law to be applied to everybody else, just not you. Y'all ever had people in your life who find it easy to legislate and dictate to you how you're supposed to live? Well, bless your heart. Right? Right? They want to tell somebody else how they're supposed to live. They want to tell somebody else what is right or wrong for their life. They want to issue and legislate values on someone else's life. But the truth is, they can't live by their own legislation.
That's true.
They don't have to live in accordance with their legislation. As a matter of fact, what they'll do is, right, they'll take the law, right, manipulate the law, and apply it in somebody else's situation. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Right? Without any thought that they need to apply to theirs. This is Bill Dad. Right? You all know Job had, actually, most people talk about his 3 friends, but he really had 4 friends, right? It's just his 4th friend, Elihu, was a young man, right? But his initial 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, for the first 7 days after Job had gone through his calamity, they went and they sat with him. And they didn't open their mouth. They were doing okay. Y'all know sometimes you just need to sit with people. And you mess up when you start opening your mouth. Sometimes you just need to be present with people when they're going through hardships, when they're going through calamity. Sometimes you just need to keep your mouth shut. I was talking to a young man yesterday and with his parents, and it was very difficult for him to gain understanding that sometimes it's important for you. You don't have to say what's on your mind. Right? This young man felt as though he needed to tell his teachers something and reason with them because they didn't understand. Teacher told him one thing, he said, but no, this is happening here. Teacher tells him one other thing, no, but this is happening here. It was almost though it was important for him to have to say what he thought, because he thought what he had to say really mattered. Y'all ever did that before? You just had to say it. You just had to say it. It was justifiable, right? Maybe if I said it, the logic, you get it. You begin to understand better, right? That what I think is right, and what you think, I ain't say it's wrong, but the truth is, if you listen to my logic, I'm sure I can sway you to my side, right? This young man couldn't get it, that sometimes it's important just to sit down and be quiet. You ain't got to say everything you think. Right? Truth is, what I've grown to understand is, you feel like you have a need to say what you have to say, when really, because you think that they don't know what you're getting ready to say. But the truth is, they not only know what you're getting ready to say, they can agree with what you're getting ready to say. But the truth is, will not apply it. Don't want to apply it. Never had a thought to apply. This young man was telling his teacher something. His teacher knew. But it didn't matter that you thought logic prevailed. What mattered was the teacher had already forged a specific direction. We shouldn't be duped to think that the words we think we have to say need to be said because the person that we're speaking to doesn't fully understand. No, most times they do. They get it. They really just don't want to hear it. It's not important. It's not valuable. It's not moving the process along, right? Sometimes we just need to sit down and be quiet. Zophar, Bildad, and Eliphaz, they understood that for 7 days, but after that 7th day, they began to go through a series of 3 attacks each on Job. In Job chapter 18, we're looking at the second attack that Bildad waged against Job. And honestly, what he was telling Job was, the reason you're going through this hardship, this trial, this difficulty, is because you wicked. Job, you did something. You know you did something. And you might as well fess up. Right? Because the truth is, this is the result of the wicked. The result of the wicked is that they have no light in them. The lamp has been burnt out. And they're going to die. Their bodies will rot. The wicked will have no peace. They'll have no home. They'll have no ability to prosper, because guess what God does? God will avenge the righteous and destroy the wicked. Right? If you look at the last verse in chapter 18, I think it's amazing. The last verse of chapter 18 says, surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him who does not know God. Really? Bildad is telling Job, this is the result of what the wicked go through. The stuff that you're going through, the loss of your family, the loss of your finances, the loss of all your friends, the loss of all your stuff. Your wife turned against you. You've lost everything. And it got to happen. It had to happen because you've been wicked. And because you're wicked, Job, I know you don't know God. Maybe Bildad didn't read the first chapter. Maybe Bildad didn't understand God himself.
That's what it sounds like.
That the test that Job was going through was an indicator of his knowledge of God.
That's right.
The fact of the matter is that God introduced Job to Satan because he was an upright man. What? You trying to tell me that sometimes hardship takes place?
Yes.
in your life because you're upright? This don't seem fair. That God would allow difficulties and issues to arise in a person's life who is walking toward his will. Why in the world would God do that? Glad you asked. God does that not only as a mechanism to thwart Satan, he gives us an opportunity to participate in destroying Satan's plan. And he uses us as an instrument of light to develop a victorious outcome, right, for his glory. But the truth is, it's very difficult for us to look at that as being a blessing. But yet and still we say, God, use me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Take my hands, Lord, and my feet. Right? You can use me, Lord. Right? Anything you want, I'll do. Right?
Except this.
Except this.
Except this.
Right? There was a cat named Jonah that I read about one time, who was the prophet of God. God called him to go preach to the Ninevites, right? And so that they may come to a saving knowledge of God. And guess what Jonah did? He ran. You can use me. I'm your prophet. I'm your man. I'm your man, right? But bless you, boo-boo. I'm your man. Use me any way you want. Just not this way. Just not like this. Right? But what I specifically wanted to talk to you all about was how Bildad developed this thought process that he knew God better than Job.